Hey there. So one of the biggest questions that we're getting a lot right now is what is happening to home prices? Are they going up? Are they going down? And what's happening? And you've probably seen some headlines, heard opinions, or maybe even gotten some conflicting advice, right? So we wanted to help clear that up. We're Lynne and Joseph with Salt Marsh Properties here in Charleston, and today we're breaking down what's happening actually with home prices, both nationally as well as here locally in the greater Charleston area.
Yeah, so we are doing a YouTube content presence to try to help people hear what we're learning about and talking about in the market, also delivering that to you guys. And so follow us on our channel. We have newsletters, we have blogs. But let's start first with the national data, focusing on the last few years. So home prices saw a major surge between 2020 and 2022, with appreciation rates reaching over 12% annually during that time. But since then, things have shifted. We're in 2026 now. Price growth has slowed significantly, with more recent appreciation closer to low single digits in that 2 to 4%. What's important to remember, though, is the prices didn't crash. They just stopped growing at what we think was an unsustainable pace.
Yeah. So, like Lynn said, nationally as well as locally, which we'll get more into, prices didn't fall off a cliff, right? We saw them level out. What changed was the speed of the appreciation, not the direction of it long term. And that's a huge differentiation to make because everyone just thought that we started dropping in prices, which was not the case.
It's not the case. And if you drill down in your local market, which we're about to do, you will see how that's reflected for the specific home you may be thinking to buy or sell here in Charleston. So when you look at median home sale prices locally, you see a steady climb through 21 and 22, followed by continued but slower growth into 24, 25, and now 26. Charleston hasn't experienced a meaningful drop in prices. Instead, we've seen, this is a good thing, stabilization and more normal appreciation levels. However, that could affect someone who might have bought in that time frame and now need to sell, let's say relocation, or for whatever reason it may be a little tight for them, and that's kind of unusual that we're kind of experiencing for the first time again in a while.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, like Lynn said, is when you look back a few years ago, some parts of the Charleston area were seeing 15+% appreciation year over year. So when you're not seeing that now, you think that's a bad thing, and that's not the case. So let's talk about some key differences between what's happening nationally as well as locally here in Charleston. Difference number one, price growth slowed, not reversed, right? Nationally,
Right.
basically, appreciation cooled off. But like you said, it cooled, but it still remained positive.
Here in Charleston,
Yeah.
right. And Charleston continues to see strong demand from relocation buying, retirees, and lifestyle driven moves. People still love to move here, right?
Yeah, and that demand almost creates well, I hate to use the word floor, but it kind of creates a little bit more of a stabilization from that. So that's an important part. Next part is inventory still matters, right? Where inventory is tight. I mean, we're seeing the number of homes coming on the market increasing, but we still have, relatively speaking, lower inventory than we should, especially for this time of year. They didn't fall, right? So prices, or excuse me, prices don't fall because of that, which is an important factor in this.
And in many Charleston neighborhoods, we're still seeing limited supply, especially in desirable areas. And one might argue that every area is desirable, and I would agree with that. So you just have to really look and see what's on the market and when did they buy and what are
Yeah.
they expecting. We've been having a couple of those discussions of trying not to hold on to a former market. We're in this market now.
Yeah. One of the things to keep in mind is the price, right? What's happening with price versus the pace. One of the biggest misunderstandings that we're seeing right now is they're confusing price declines with actually slower appreciation, slower growth. We're not seeing widespread drop in values. We're just seeing a return to a more normal pace, a little below normal in some areas. That's fine. Yet still an appreciation.
So here's a simple breakdown. Prices surged from 20 to 22. Growth slowed over the last couple of years, 22 to now.
Yep.
And in Charleston, values have remained stable. So your asset is still really strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and it continued to trend upward. So this is a normalization,
Yeah.
not a downturn. And it's so important to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing to think of is when you focus on just the last few years, it's easy to think that something dramatic has changed. And we're seeing that a lot with clients right now. But when you just look at the data clearly, the market is simply adjusting to a healthier market. And Lynn had mentioned this in the number of homes sold, is it's very hard to compare yourself to what happened, or compare to what happened in that 2020 to 2021 and parts of 2022, because it really just makes it like everything, you think the sky's falling a little bit comparing it to then, when that's actually not the case. Charleston continues to be one of the more stable markets, again, because of demand. People want to live here.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what this means for you, we absolutely feel that we're good resources for that, because we've been having that conversation on the side of the table with our sellers and also on the side of the table with our buyers, when we have sometimes some sellers who are still really trying to focus on what it used to be. And sometimes the buyer and the seller aren't meeting. There's maybe a lack of reality of what's going on. That's why I'm saying it's really important you know who's advising you, that they have the education, the stats, the trends, to be able to tell you all of this. But always follow us, because we love to give this to anyone who wants to listen, because we're passionate about making sure your asset and how you go through that transaction is as peaceful as possible and as encouraging as possible.
That's right. Reach out anytime. We love to help you make a confident decision when you're making a decision to buy or sell here in Charleston. So reach out and we're happy to answer any questions. Thanks so much.
Bye.